The little girl took the faint candlelight, walking in the dark cellar stairs. Originally only 10 steps of the stairs, but she walked hundreds of thousands of steps. Until the end, she did not come out of the cellar stairs. What's going on here? Today, Ms.Pumpkin brings the thriller movie The Crypt of Horror. The story takes place in this foreclosure house. The house decoration reveals the eerie. Each door is engraved with mysterious symbols. The walls are covered with portraits. They are uniformly posed with eerie gestures. In addition, there is a cellar that can only be opened from the outside. Unexpectedly, an accident happened on the first day of moving in. At night, Eliza and her husband were working overtime, leaving their daughter Mary alone to take care of her younger brother Jack. The siblings got bored and listened to the record player. There were no songs on the record, just the voice of the man reciting mathematical equations. Then, the man began to count, and the siblings turned off the record player in confusion. Midnight, a gust of wind blew out from the cellar door. The lights flickered a few times and then went out, plunging the entire house into darkness. Mary was so scared that she called her mother, and Eliza told her that the electric switch was in the. She could see it by walking down 10 steps. The cellar stairs were pitch black with no end in sight, and the light of the candles could only illuminate a small area. In order to strengthen myself, Mary began to count the steps, as long as the count to 10 means safe arrival. But the further down the road, the more scared Mary. There was the sound of the door turning behind, and the candles seemed to be going out at any moment. When Mary walked to the 9th steps, she was already in tears of fear. Eliza encouraged her daughter on the other end of the phone. When she heard Mary read out 10, she revealed a smile. At this moment, Mary actually read out 11 or 12, and continued. Eliza's heart tightened, and a sense of foreboding came over her. So the couple hurriedly drove home and returned to find that Mary had disappeared. Eliza felt very remorse. She went to the cellar to check, and soon found clues. Jack said that they listened to a record with equations on the cover that night, and there was also an equation engraved on the bottom of the cellar steps, exactly the same as on the record. Not only that, the cellar walls were painted with ghostly faces, and Eliza thought there was something wrong with the house. At night, the sound of her daughter counting came from the downpipe. Eliza came to the cellar looking for the sound. A green ball rolled down, and the sound got farther and farther, but it never stopped. Eliza immediately sweat hair erect. She hurriedly opened the light. The cellar in front of you all normal. The stairs did not have an extra step. But the green ball is really gone. The next day, Eliza played that weird record, and the sound of men counting was heard from the record. At this time, the house seemed to have triggered some kind of mechanism. The closet door opened automatically, the abacus began to count automatically, and the lights suddenly went out. Eliza heard her son Jack's cry for help and followed the sound to find that Jack was locked in the cellar. And the cellar door would never open. She looked in through the gap. The next second, a monster appeared to scare her backwards. This moment, Jack's voice came from behind. Before Eliza could recover, the cellar door opened by itself, and the electricity in the house returned to normal. Eliza plucked up the courage and walked into the cellar, but there was still no electricity in the cellar. Eliza looked down, and the stairs were pitch black and the end was not visible. This time, the cellar door slammed shut. A strange sound came from the darkness, which scared Eliza to drop her phone. The sound of the phone rolling down from the cellar never stopped. After a long time, a low roar came. Eliza fell into fear. The monster seems to be approaching her. She can almost feel the monster's coarse breath blowing on their own face. Fortunately, her husband appeared in time and opened the cellar door. Husband thought Eliza missed daughter too much and was mentally ill, but Eliza insisted there was something wrong with the cellar. The next day, she showed the math equation to a mathematician, who told her that the equation was not easy. It can realize transformation in different dimensions in a certain space. The mathematician also mentioned that he had called Eliza, but she kept counting. Alicia was stunned to hear this. She told her husband about her discovery, but he continued to think Eliza was delusional. Because of the loss of her daughter, the sad husband swung the hammer and smashed the equation on the floor. The hammer made a sound that seemed to trigger the organ again. The record player began to play automatically. The abacus began to count automatically. The closet door opened itself. The voice of a woman counting came out from inside. Jack came over to see, but it was his sister Mary. Eliza and husband rushed over. They both began to believe that something was wrong. The husband researched the secret of the mysterious symbol on the door, which was the demon Baphomet, the gatekeeper of hell, and Baphomet's gesture is exactly the movement in the oil painting. It can be seen that the whole house is designed around the devil Baphomet. This time, the familiar green ball rolled down. The sound of Jack counting came to her ears. Eliza rushed to smell the sound and found a confused Jack at the cellar door. She rushed to carry Jack out to check whether her son was hurt. When she lifted up clothes, she was horrified to find that Jack had Baphomet's 5-pointed star on his body. Then, Jack began to count again, but this time, Jack was counting backwards from 50. This frightened Elisa panicked and went to her husband. A more frightening thing happened, as the husband stood rigidly in the living room, motionless, while the numbers coming out of his mouth were in perfect sync with Jack's count. Elisa tried to wake her husband, but to no avail. The numbers were soon counted to the head. The next second, the cellar door was opened. The wind blew. Elisa could not open her eyes. Then the cellar came from the strange sound. She rolled and crawled into the study. After a while, she heard that there was no movement outside, so Elisa wanted to come out to check. But it happened to meet the monster. She was grabbed by a hand and struggled desperately before she could get out. This time, Eliza had only one thought in her mind. She must save her daughter, who was captured by the monster. She rushed to the cellar desperately, running for a while, before realizing that the stairs had already exceeded 10 steps. She went out with a flashlight, and the stairs went all the way down, and at the end was a wooden door. At this moment, Baphomet's cry came from behind. Eliza rushed through the wooden door. Then, she was stunned by the sight before her eyes, which was filled with people who were counting. Elisa felt a pang of despair. How could so many people find her daughter? Suddenly, a familiar tattoo came into view. It was daughter Mary. She stepped forward to hold each other and took her daughter back the same way. This time, the son and husband seemed to have returned to normal. Eliza was ready to escape with family. The moment she opened the door, she was stunned. A long staircase appeared in front of her eyes, and the end was the entrance to the cellar of her house. The family behind Eliza starts counting again, and it looks like the family is going to be trapped here forever. And the movie ends here.